Hey everyone, I thought of a really fun idea, so let's go ahead and sort some Jane Austen characters. So I am using some attributes in the books, but also also just in the community. Please keep in mind that Slytherin is not a bad thing. Slytherin can be good or bad, not just like the books, which are kind of overly simplified. So for Gryffindor, I'm looking for bravery. I'm looking for charisma. I'm looking for just general courage and outgoing qualities. For Hufflepuff, I'm looking for loyalty, friendship, uh, devotion to family, and hardworking as well. For Ravenclaw, I'm looking not just for like book smarts, but a little bit more of a rigid personality, a little bit more OCD, um, and more of a rule follower. And then for Slytherin, I'm looking for ambition and intelligence, basically. Obviously, these are all nuanced, and this is just my opinion. So this could be very different depending on your definition of the different houses. In case you're curious, I'm a Gryffindor. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with Pride and Prejudice, and I'll just go ahead and pull up the characters here. First, we have Elizabeth. I have always identified with Elizabeth just with her like quirky personality and her fun, and her very outgoingness really shows courage. She does not get dismayed by very powerful people. So she just acts the same in front of everyone, and that's a very Gryffindor like quality. Um, Darcy was a little bit more difficult. I could put him in the Ravenclaw category. Um, I would, though, put him Hufflepuff because uh, for his reactions and the way he treats his sister is very Hufflepuff like. He's very clannish. And also because once he loves Elizabeth, he sticks to that even when he's not encouraged. So that kind of loyalty, even without encouragement, is very Hufflepuff to me. Jane and Bingley, I think, are the most adorable little Hufflepuff family. They're both very Hufflepuff. And I think there's like even a joke at the end that like all of their servants are gonna cheat them because they're so easygoing. So that's like to me very Hufflepuff. And then I think a really great example of a good Slytherin, because Slytherin is a lot more nuanced than people think. I think that that would be like my secondary. I'm like Gryffindor Slytherin. Slytherin, I think, would be Charlotte Lucas. She is a very good friend, but she assesses the situation and collectively thinks, what is the best for me? What in this situation would be best for me? And it doesn't necessarily matter. It does a little, and it doesn't necessarily matter what her friend thinks of it. She has decided this is what's best for her, so that's what she's going with, which I think is very Slytherin. So she's a really good example of a good Slytherin, like not an antagonist or anything. Obviously, an example of a bad Slytherin would be Wickham. He is just out for himself, and he is not going to care who gets in his way. He's going to say or do anything to gain whatever he needs to gain. So that's an example of an antagonist Slytherin, but also a protagonist Slytherin would be Charlotte. All right, let's go to Sense and Sensibility. I love this movie so much. I didn't go too far into depth with this. Eleanor, I believe, is very Ravenclaw because she's very analytical. So whenever there's a problem, she really thinks about it. So that's how I think that she's a Ravenclaw, is because she thinks very logically and she just kind of goes through the steps in her brain. For example, when she is heartbroken over her lost love, but she thinks about it and she says, these are the reasons why I should kind of keep this to myself. So I'm not going to share. I feel like if she was a Hufflepuff, she would share, because that's more like a clannish thing to do. She's looking out for her family, but like in a kind of more calculating way. That's why I lean more Ravenclaw with her. And then I have Marianne. Marianne could go a couple of different ways, but I think Marianne is an example of how Gryffindors can kind of go too far. And this is an assessment of myself. When I was younger, I was very Marianne-ish. I took my passions too far and kind of just assumed that if I followed my passions, I would be right, which is very unwise. So I think Gryffindors can kind of go that way where they're like, I see this and I'm going to run for it, and like I'm going to have fun and adventure without like looking at the consequences. I feel like kind of jumping in too soon. I feel, and that's very Marianne-ish. I didn't do a lot of Emma characters for this one. Maybe I'll do a part two if y'all like this. I just thought Emma's very Gryffindor. She's just very charismatic and doesn't care what other people think. It just kind of does. So I just see her as Gryffindor. Maybe that's because I identify with Emma as well. Very outgoing. Um, for Mansfield Park, this one was a little bit more difficult because it's been a bit since I read it, and I only have read it once. It's probably the only one. Oh, that and Northanger Abbey are the only two that I've only read once. So I was thinking though, Fanny in the movies, she's very Ravenclaw. Very, very Ravenclaw. But I don't feel like as much in the books, but you could see that. Edmund is very Hufflepuff. He's so sweet and loving and loyal. And I think that's like why he doesn't do well with Mary. Mary is like his love interest in the beginning, but she's very, very Slytherin. Like, not just a little Slytherin. She's very, very Slytherin. And so it's like not always a good match. I feel like I do know some Hufflepuff Slytherins that like work, but I feel like not as common that they work. So that's why Edmund goes better with Fanny, because Ravenclaw Hufflepuffs are great. Not my husband, my brother and his wife are Hufflepuff Ravenclaw, and it's very cute. I think that's a really good combination. And then I did Persuasion. Anne, I think it would be Hufflepuff. And I was trying to kind of think about the captain. I feel like he might be another good example of a really good Slytherin. That he assesses the situation and decides what's best for himself, and that's very Slytherin. So I think that he might be a good example of like a good Slytherin, because he like has his feelings, yes, but then he kind of has to like watch and wait to see if it's actually right for him. So he was like gonna marry Anne's cousin because it's like was a better decision for him, but then like he kind of waited it out. So yeah, that's just what I kind of thought about these. Let me know if you disagree about any one in the comments, and let me know also if you have any other ideas for any other characters that I might want to do in a part two, because I really, really like this. I think I'm going to make it a series. I'm going to sort some other book characters. So yeah, hope to see you soon. Bye.